Yo, the kids official sliding on the instrumental. Nordic combos, twist your mental like forbidden.
Peace to the public and power to the people. What's good? And welcome back to the space where the vulnerable are powerful.
Yes, sir.
And where the most gangster thing you could do is surf. This is All the Way Live.
Episode 109 of the All the Way Live show. I am your host, Zoe Aguila, joined by co-host Miles Xavier. Together, we are a collective of activists, a collective of entrepreneurs and creatives who have created the show for a host of reasons, but no reason more important other than the fact that we cultivate a space of carefully curated content for your cranium, like we like to say, man. We give you information that you can take with you and sound smart around your friends. We analyze current topics, we review pop culture, things of that nature, and we do it because we understand people are going through it. Miles Xavier, we understand that loneliness is at an all-time high, depression is at an all-time high, suicide is at an all-time high, drug addiction is at an all-time high, and because of those reasons, we try and create a place where you can come through, get some energy, and go forward with your day. We do that by giving y'all hot topics every single week, and you know this week ain't no different. Couldn't do this without our producer.
No doubt, man. Shout out to our producer. The UK is most definitely in the building. Word up to Hassan. Namibia is in the building. South Africa is in the building, courtesy of my guy's way. Shout out to you. Through the wire. Through the trials and the tribulations, you know what I'm saying? If y'all follow us real closely, we're a little bit late, we're a little bit tardy, but that's because we had some technical difficulties that we're working through, and we appreciate y'all for always sticking with us through all of that. Thank you, my guy, for your patience and for holding it down for SA and Namibia as well. And on this side, you already know what's going on, man. This podcast is recorded on stolen land, Chicago. This land was cared for by the Potawatomi people, the Ojibwe, the Odawa, the Council of the Three Fires, and the violence done to remove those First Nations people from this land is inseparable from the violence that we see and combat in this city today, the violence that we see and combat in this country today, and the violence that we see and combat in this world today, right? So if y'all combating that with us, one way you can do that is by lifting up love. For First Nations people the world over, for Indigenous people the world over, between Black and Brown and all the multicolored people the world over, it's all love. And that's the end of the intro, man. Let's get into the show.
Yeah, I get that, but is we live though? Is we like all the way live though? You heard?
Man, it feels so good to be able to do this thing with you, man. Like you said, we had so many technical issues. I almost threw in the towel. I'm not even gonna lie. I was like, listen, we've tried everything we could. This might just be it.
But sometimes the universe makes a way. The universe knows what this space is, what we're going for, what we're trying to create here. And while it likes to give us a hard time, sometimes it creates a path for us to persist. So I'm just thankful that we are all the way live, and that you didn't throw that towel in. We held it back.
Listen, there's no way we can throw the towel in when this show is dedicated to highlighting a lot of the impact work that happens. We like to say this show is where creativity meets impact, and what we do is celebrate that sort of impact. Miles Xavier, your community organizer extraordinaire. You're a man of your society and a man of your people. I like to pride myself as somebody whose entire career is focused around finding solutions for my communities and my people. Our producer is constantly working with different creatives within his circle to be able to uplift them, highlight them, and push them to their creative limits. So we, as a people, as a show, are dedicated to the impact side of things, man. And I know for a fact through the foundation that me and you run, the Mandula Foundation, we've been able to do some incredible things. Brother, give us a quick highlight of the work that you've been doing this week, and also some of the updates that we have for the foundation.
Yeah, man. Well, it's been a beautiful week in the sense of that marriage between art and impact. Shout out to the homie Terry. That's my big homie. He reached out and to get some food deliveries for some folks in his apartment complex. So 4 families over at his place got some food delivered to them through the Bread of Life food pantry. Shout out to Pastor Gillespie. And if you or anybody you know in the Chicagoland area, I'll make the move. If you know anybody that could use a box of groceries, I'm dropping those off weekly on Mondays. So let us know, man, if you want to be looped into that. He literally called me, told me how many, and I brought him through. It's that easy. So it was beautiful to have that as a part of the week. Attended the Woodlawn Safety Conference, or my bad, the community conference, and where they were talking about some quality of life plans to build up the area. Woodlawn, one of the farthest north south side areas here in the city, if that makes sense. So it was beautiful. We had our mayoral candidates, Paul Vallis and Brandon Johnson, pull up to that. It was dope to hear from Brandon. I'm not biased, it was just dope to hear from the brother, so it was dope that they came out to speak to the family, to the community. And then from there, man, I got to marry that impact with some art, man. I got to go see the Roots yesterday live in Chicago at the Salt Shed.
I didn't even know you did that. How was that?
It was amazing, man. It was amazing. After a hard week of running around delivering food and convening community stakeholders to prevent violence, it was dope to just get to show up to a concert and just be blown away by incredible hip hop. Shout out to Black Thought, Questlove, and their entire band over live instrumentation. Hip hop is a different thing. So that was a beautiful cap to my week. Shout out to Peter from the Chicago Race Riots Project, hooked us up with those tickets. And shout out to my boy Casey, man. Also got to celebrate his born day yesterday. So we was out listening to some different type of music, but definitely turning up. And it was just, like I said, man, it was a dope combination of the art and impact this week for me. What's been up with you, man?
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Very much in the same vein, brother. We did a lot of work this week pushing this foundation of ours forward. We hand out food from Chicago to SA. This week, we got some unfortunate news that one of our key sponsors who's helped us deliver over 7 million meals is going to be ending their program. So effectively, our largest sponsor, Anat Bread, is no longer able to continue with the donor and sponsor program. So for us, it really is a situation and a crisis of sorts that we're trying to be able to find a solution to, right? It's quite important for us to continue to feed the beneficiaries that we have. We have about 7-8 different beneficiaries that are orphanages and community centers that rely on this bread and rely on this food. So consider this, if anything else, just a call to assistance and a call to action to anyone that might have access to extra food, warehousing, distributing of food, anything of that sort, man. Would really appreciate it so we can keep that sort of support going. That's what's been happening.
Yo, but shout out to Anat for all the meals that they've enabled us to deliver since the beginning of that partnership. Everything is finite. All good things must come to an end. And so, we hope that one day, or matter of fact, we hope we can continue to work with Anat in whatever capacity is available. They've provided us bread up to this point. We're very appreciative of that. So as that relationship comes to a close, it is with gratitude for everything that they've been able to give us, and optimism for everything that we might receive from you and y'all connections out there that might know of anybody who has any food in the Joburg area that we can spread out and deliver and distribute.
100%. Are we missing anything from the impact spotlight before we get into these chats, man? Because I'll tell you, the conversations we have today, it's a Sunday. We've been working hard, man. I'm really trying to be able to have a very lighthearted, easy, fun conversation around some difficult topics, admittedly, but definitely trying to get to that. Are we missing anything that we should highlight before we move into our next segment?
Nah, man, nah. You've been working hard, so you deserve some easy, some laid back Sunday chats. I'm happy to dive into that with you.
For sure. I when we said easy chat, state of masculinity might not have been the easiest chat to be able to start with, but here we are, right? There's been a there's been a conversation that's been happening, and there's different angles to be able to get from it, right? But it does seem as though masculinity, particularly from black masculinity, is on trial or is at the forefront, right? We're seeing things like Jonathan Majors, who was supposedly dressed in feminine garb, and people stepped out and said they love making the black man dress up in a dress. Why, Miles Xavier? Do they like making the black man dress up in a dress?
Oof, man, you gonna make me put my film studies, my whole black exploitation cap on for this one. And shout out to our producer. If you're not enjoying the YouTube experience, you're missing out, man.
That's a blouse, not a dress, by the way.
Yo, um, there's an argument that's often made that Hollywood, particularly in the late 90s, early 2000s, would take rising black stars, Eddie Murphy, Martin Lawrence, whoever it might be, and make them do a movie where they played a woman, had them dress in drag as a way of emasculating these black stars who would otherwise be, and sometimes were anyway, sex symbols in Hollywood. So I think that run of and to like give context, Mrs. Doubtfire-esque, which is Robert Williams, a white dude, but like that type of film and the emphasis on having black men in those roles for a long time, I think created this argument that Hollywood's doing it on purpose. And from the other side of that, where that's less of a thing these days, I could see how people would think that. So I'm not going to say whether or not having men wear feminine clothing is a purposeful campaign by Hollywood, but I don't think that was the case with Jonathan Majors. I think
Not at all.
I think drip can be a lot of things, come from a lot of places, look like a lot of things, and can swing toward things we typically consider masculine or feminine. And he wore. I don't know if he picked out the clothes, but I think he hasn't expressed any regret for wearing any of the things he wore, which is a brave masculine stance. But he was at a photo shoot. He was doing something different, right? I think a lot of this whole conversation and a lot of the examples we can give comes from a confusion about masculinity, what masculinity is, what are the healthy ways to express it. And I think black men in particular have a very limited window in which we're typically allowed to express or expected to express our masculinity.
I like that you said that. I like that you said how limited the window of expression of masculinity is for black men, because a lot of the time it is reserved for either in very on the extreme ends of masculinity, right? It's in brute strength, it's in physical abilities, or whatever, however else you want to be able to call it. And this week I was actually thinking about why that could actually be the case. And I think a big part of it, right, is if you look through like historically, a lot of the times a form of a form of mental oppression that was put onto the black man did come from stripping them of their masculinity. You heard of things like breaking the buck, right? Where you break the buck. This is a action that slave owners would take black men, typically the biggest and strongest of them, and would rape them in front of the rest of the slave cohorts, right? In front of all the other slaves, and that would break the buck. That's to be able to take the strongest one and be able to be like, look, we can even take your strongest one and do this to them. And you've seen that happen in many different instances. You hear the stories of Nelson Mandela, and he was not permitted to. He would he would shower with a group of male security guards watching him, and then they'd also make him dig. They'd make him dig burials and then get in there naked, and then they'd urinate on him, right? Just extremely emasculating stuff. So I think we're so sensitive to these things that when we do see something that is very trivial, like Jonathan Majors deciding to wear what I thought was kind of fly, a, a pink blouse or whatever the case is, we are very sensitive and quick to react. So Is our reaction right? No, I don't think so. I think we're too sensitive for that. But taking it into context in how black masculinity has been something that is used as a form of oppression and has been attacked previously, then you can understand where that sensitivity comes from.
Yeah, man. And I think a lot of recent events, uh, including Jonathan Major's photo shoot, including the press run that he's done with Michael B. Jordan, where they showing each other a lot of love, right? Has even raised some eyebrows, right? Due to the sad fact that brothers, men, right, showing each other love uh, in any type of way is always scrutinized with a very particular eye and a very particular lens, right? And so I think it's really interesting, and I'm glad to have this conversation with you as my brother, as somebody you are probably the man that I'm most affectionate with outside of my, shout out to Evan and Daniel, my brothers. Um, but I think like it was really interesting to see the commentary that people were having on Jonathan Majors and Michael B. Jordan. You know, they've just done a movie together. It's literally a movie about boxing, right? Like they're fighting in the movie. I don't know how much more like masculine you can get. And to contrast that with shout out to Hassan, man, pulling up some of these images and photos with these images of two men that are friends, that care for each other. I wanted to get your take on this and just, how did this make you feel? Did it resonate with you? Because I was glad to see them, shown in this light.
It's sad, dude. It really is sad, and it does reinforce the whole point that we say, where it's just like, man, black men really do have a very limited window on how we can express our love for each other, how we're able to be affectionate with each other, and even in the idea that you know the idea that there's a certain type of clothing that you have to be able to wear in order to be considered a man or not. It's unfair. It really is unfair. And you're right, dude. These dudes just finished doing arguably the most manliest thing that you could do on film, which is fight each other. Okay. And that's funny enough, that's extremely endearing. There's a lot of hugs that go on when you're fighting someone, you're shirtless, dude. Like it's very violent, but because of how violent it is, there's a very strong bond that gets formed in there. I think people just don't like Michael B. Jordan. I think women love Michael B. Jordan, but men don't like Michael B. Jordan.
I mean, yeah, men would have plenty of reasons to not like Michael B. Jordan, right? Especially the way that their women react to Michael B. Jordan, right? I've had to sit through, maybe not necessarily with Michael B, but the guys that your girl likes. You know what I'm saying? When y'all watch
It's
a
Michael
movie,
B.
see some trailers, you know which guys get that certain reaction out of her. Pedro Pascal, homie from The Last of Us and from Mandalorian, been getting that reaction from a few ladies. We could jump to what's been going on with him in a second. But man, you know what I really think is that there's not enough of this. There's not enough examples of two men that are friends showing that care for each other, showing that, especially black men, right? Like we all are all behind this idea of put the guns down and stop the violence. But what fills the vacuum of that violence, right? It should be love. That's what we should hope for. But then we turn around and see and try to police what love between two black men can look like and want to assign the displays of that love and that affection to some type of sexual desire, some type of sexual needs. The irony of men being sexualized in that way, right? Especially when it's two black men just being like, now we're unable to take a look at this picture without attaching some sexual labels to it, is ironic in the way that women have been treated, in the way that men have always sexualized women in the past. And a lot of what's been happening has made me think about that with these two gentlemen, with Pedro Pascal, and then even looking at what's going on with Chris Rock and Will Smith. You know, a man has been slapped, his masculinity is challenged. The response to that, you know what I mean? It's complicated.
Listen, dude, and when you see this picture, I know you think exactly what I'm thinking. I've been trying to find this picture but me and you have a picture that looks exactly like this, bro. It exactly like this picture.
Oh shit, I do know what picture you're talking about.
I know you know which picture I'm speaking about. It's exactly what it is, man. And I think like dudes, let's stop trying to be so tough, man. Like what are we trying to be tough for? Like for real. Like what are we actually trying to be tough for? What does this tough masculine image even lead to? what's the value of being an unnecessarily tough and abrasive black man? Because if anything, it's more dangerous, right? Being seen as a super strong black dude is something that's dangerous, can get you killed for one, right? So it's just like I don't know. I get lost and I get frustrated in understanding like why why we feel the need to be able to cast the love between two black men, even if it is sexual, as non-masculine.
Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Even if it is sexual, right? Well, I think part of it, and before, like, got a lot of thoughts running through my head, but I think increasingly we've continued to limit, or maybe start to recognize the limits of ways in which men are able to gain respect and be respected, right? It's been increasingly limited to, like you said, like this toughness. Men show that they are quote unquote manly either by beating somebody up, by having a lot of women, or by, it's a very limited being, demonstrating some very athletic or some type of prowess, right? In something, right? And I think we're just in this weird place where media has only gotten better at showing that, and rather than using growth in media to like expand the depictions of men that we see, uh we've just gotten even more, like, we're emphasizing even more the various, like, those tropes that are very basic, right? I think a lot of people in this conversation would jump to hip hop and be like, yo, hip hop has always just been portraying men as this very, you got to be gangster. But like, look at what the most popular movies of the last few decades are. Look at John Wick. You know what I mean?
True.
Look at, you know what I'm saying? Look at, like, Netflix spends millions of dollars to make The Irishman, right? Joe Pesci, Robert De Niro, these figures and idols from, the 90s, the 80s, have been pushing this kind of one type of masculine man stereotype. I think we've just been funneled into this idea that we just, where our imagination as to what makes a man manly has just become increasingly focused on one type of very gangster, very physical, and often violent individual,
And the big problem with something like that is that it is so far from the reality of what happens to a man as they mature. Because as you mature, you fall in love, you become affectionate, and if you never get in touch with your feminine side, you become imbalanced, right? How are you able to appreciate the 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 healing components that come with being kind and soft and open yourself to love and to cry and to express yourself, right? Not saying that those are particularly feminine traits, but those are all the traits that are this this buffet of emotions that we have in life. And the thing that you see a lot of with dudes, right? This is what you see. You see men who you see men who strive for this very tough exterior, right? And they strive for this very hard, manly man outlook. And they then become emotionally, the IQ is retarded, right? And not retarded in the sense of like in the offensive manner in which you'd say the word, but like literally the rate of which they can grow their emotional intelligence is significantly slowed down. So they are from a EQ perspective are lagging significantly because they've never forced themselves to try and articulate or understand or empathize with all of the feelings that are available to them. I'll even speak about myself, man. I was in a relationship once, and I was with somebody, and I I had this idea of like, nah, dude, like I'm a player, like I'm you know, I, I only tell a woman something that she needs to know. That was my idea, right? I only tell her what she needs to know, and the the connection that I wanted to make with this person was not able to be there because I didn't have the language to be able to express this person I was feeling, even when I wanted to. So here I was in a situation where I wanted to be able to express how I'm feeling, but because of me having closed off myself to those emotions for so long, I literally did not have the language to be able to do it. So the effects of not allowing yourself to just flounder and take life in as a loving experience really does limit your experience of it, and then you end up just being a dude that's just angry.
Mm, mm. Or if not angry, spending so much of your time and energy trying to perpetuate that tough exterior, right? Which brings us to John Morant. You know what I mean? If the type of love and affection and masculinity that Jonathan Majors and Michael B. Jordan are showing each other gets criticized, the society that doesn't accept that is what makes someone like Ja feel like I gotta be hard, right? I have to show my commitment to being hard, right? I have to prove it. And I like that what you did by talking a little bit about your own experience. I'll be the first to say that growing up in this society, I took that image of a man very seriously for a long time, right? I thought it
What
was
you mean?
very important to show and prove that I'm not scared of anybody, right? As a man, right? That I with like and part of it is I took it seriously to the point where it was like I want to be everything that we said we're supposed to be and have it be unimpeachable, right? Even if it's detrimental to my health, right? So I'm going to make it my business to get really, really good at talking to women, right? I want to feel like Will Smith on Fresh Prince. Like I
How
have,
good did you get?
I mean, I part of those skills led me to find a beautiful partner who's helped me grow, you know what I'm saying,
Wow.
into a more mature man like you've talked about, right? So those
Wow,
skills served
this
their
is good.
purpose. And I thankfully, you know, I was able to recognize the things in masculinity that have value and have people that I love and care about help me to separate the things that don't have value from that and keep the good things and work on myself. Ongoing, still working on myself to unlearn some of the negative things, right? So yeah, it's pretty good banter, you know, between me and my lady. But that's something that I retained from a time where that banter was used not to make her laugh really, but only to make her laugh in service of my ego, right? Only to make her like me in service of my ego. And that's the part that had to be let go and parsed out. um and I think we have a lot of young brothers, man, that are putting all their time and effort into either looking like or really trying to be this fictional version of a dude that everybody accepts that version of masculinity. But then when real life problems or real life opportunities, right? Problems being confrontation, real life confrontations happens. Now I either have to live up to that standard that I've been setting and somebody's got to get hurt, or even an opportunity. Like you said, now love comes in. Now I have a woman in my life or just a woman in front of me who deserves to be respected, who deserves to be treated a certain way. And now am I going to allow those things that I've internalized about what a man is to let either of those situations result in getting someone getting hurt? Because I can't parse out the positive aspects of what I should be learning from that and the caricatures in that I need to be able to separate.
Oh, you I like what you did there, right? I like what you did there because now you've put in a very real situation that happens. You said now you're living up to this fake image of what a man is supposed to be, and then you get confrontation. And the saying goes, a coward will kill you. A coward will
Mhm.
kill you. Cowards kill many of people because now you're in a situation where you have to prove and back up all of this manly stuff you're talking about. So now the space for discussion, the space for consideration, the space to be able to think, actually, what am I, what more does, what can I, what do I protect if I walk away? Is gone because now you think that your identity is tied up in this illusion of this toughness, dude. That right there, dude, trying to prove yourself as tough as God niggas in so much trouble, dog. Like how many situations have I
Word.
dude, how many situations have we been in where just trying to prove how tough you are has put you in a predicament and you have no choice but to move forward. And you're right, dude. So many people are like that. And the truth is, a lot of these gangsters a lot of these thugs, these gangsters, these street niggas that we talk about, a lot of them actually are terrified. A lot of them are actually cowards. Because if you're brave, a brave thing to do is take the high road. That's the bravest thing you can do. If you're brave, the bravest thing you can do is preserve your life and the life of somebody else. That's a brave thing to do. How will you know it's brave? Because it's the difficult thing to do. That's the difficult thing to do. You know what I'm saying? So it does concern me a little bit when I do look around and I see what's happening, because I do think that pop culture, hip hop, um, does and social media does perpetuate the stereotype of what a real nigga is. But like, I'm more so, dude. I'm at a place in my life, right, where if you are a so-called tough nigga, I don't want to. I'm not gonna hang around you. I don't want to be around no. I don't want to be around no thuggy thugs. I ain't trying to be around no. I'm not trying to be around a person that is not able to value their own life and are trying to protect a fake idea of who they are as a man. I'm not trying to be around that at all.
I feel you. I'll put a caveat on that. I'll say I don't want to be around anybody who's not willing to change that about themselves. Right?
I
Like
like that. That's a great way
there's
to
a
put
lot
it.
of
I like that.
men I know in my life, some uncles even, right? that people that are very close to me, that have lived that way for a very long time. And for a lot of them, that toughness and persona, there was a period of their life where if you tried to pick at that and tell them that that's something that they don't need, they would tell you that that was necessary for my survival in this environment. To not be seen as a target, I had to be tough, right? And so thankfully a lot of those men that I'm close to are now in a position that enables or requires them to start thinking differently about that aspect of their masculinity. And while it's difficult for them, I see them struggle, right, with accepting masculinity as a broader term, right? Accepting that respect doesn't always look like deference to the ass whooping you can hand out to somebody. And they're trying to outlearn that while still having some reservations and still clinging to a version of themselves that they felt they had to project to protect themselves. So as long as you're willing to work on that, I think I'll rock with you. Rock with you, Chris Rock. Speaking of
Wow.
difficult situations, right?
Wow. That's alley oop off the backboard to yourself.
You know what I'm saying? Let me throw it to you then. How would you, as a person in Chris Rock's shoes, handle or try to reestablish, reaffirm, reassert your masculinity after being slapped by another man in public on such a public stage?
Oof. Here comes the toxic waters now. Brace yourselves. I don't like that you asked me that question after I went on this whole diatribe on, like, as a man, turn the other cheek. That's the best way to go, because
Your cheek got turned. Cheek turned for you. Now what?
it would be hard for me to hold my mouth at the very least. I highly doubt I would be physical about it, but I would fail to. It's hard for me to imagine myself holding that level of composure that Chris Rock did.
Have you
I'll
seen
put
the
it
new
to you that
special?
way.
Have you seen the new
I have
joint?
seen the new special. I have seen the new special. I have seen the new
You
special.
think he was
Not my favorite
composed
Chris
in
Rock
that
special.
mug?
I mean, look, dude. If you haven't look, dude, you know what it is. This dude, whenever you get into an argument with somebody, and then you end up like, you leave that person, and then you're in the car driving back, you think about all the rebuttals that you could have said. He did that for a year, and so happened to have a Netflix special about it. You know what I mean? So he was able to get the best rebuttals out of it. But
Do you
uh,
think those were the best rebuttals? Do you think they were really good?
I wasn't too that special didn't wow me. That special didn't wow me as a whole special. I think the response was fairly uh I don't know, man. It was very whatever to me. The special was very whatever to me. What did you think of it?
I mean, I didn't watch the whole thing. Like I saw the part where he responded to Will, and so I tried to watch the first. I thought the first 5-10 minutes were not very good. I tried to watch them at one point. I was like, I'll come back to this. I ended up not
Mm,
coming back to the special, but I saw the part where he addressed Will, and I thought I was not surprised. Right? He's a comedian. If he had a platform, a live platform, he got slapped live. You give him a platform to come back live. But I saw a man that was hurt. It felt like that was it. Whatever funny intentions he had, the funny dial dipped all the way into the hurt territory, right? And I felt like I was just hearing somebody who's hurt. And he acknowledged that it still hurts, but he also tried to claim I'm not a victim. You won't hear me complaining about it while going on a tirade about it, while calling, Jada outside of her name. And if you're of the opinion that whatever goes in comedy, like that's cool. And I'm not even trying to shade Chris. If somebody slaps you like that, like how you respond is how you respond. But as somebody who believes that all you can control is your reactions, I would hope, can't guarantee, can't even say it's likely, but I would hope that if that happened to me, I would take that time to have a very honest and humbling conversation about that I don't know what to do. That the world and the society as I see it has left me very few platforms to reclaim my masculinity, right? And I would hope that in keeping with the show that we put on every week, that I would allow my vulnerability to make me powerful and say, he slapped me. I want to slap him back. I really want to, but I know I shouldn't. And he knows he shouldn't have never slapped me in the first place. So now as two black men who've had a physical altercation and then had all the commentary to remind us that violence isn't the answer, but still have a desire to slap him back. I don't know. I don't know what to do with my hands, world.
I like that.
You know what I'm saying? I would hope that I could come from an area of not saying not saying I'm over it, or not saying, I'm not a victim. But just saying I'm all of those things. I'm angry. I'm not over it. I want to be over it. I want to slap him back. I want to call this woman out her name. But I don't know what to do, because y'all haven't let me, as a man who's grown at this point, you haven't given me any other route, right? Like I'm confused. So let's create a pathway for me and for little boys to see, how do you reclaim that masculinity? I don't know what the route for that is. And I would hope I would use that moment as a time to highlight that I don't see how I can be a man in the eyes of the world now that y'all have seen this, because you haven't given me any positive platforms to explain that I still feel manly and masculine, right?
No, he a genius. He just can't claim it because they left him no platforms to explain it. Nipsey Hussle. But I like what you said, man. And really, because I was struggling to figure out what's not funny about this whole about why this portion of the special wasn't so gripping and so funny and so memorable. And I think it's because it was projective. It was outward. It was outward diagnosing as opposed to internal. And I think what have been more compelling is what happens after you get slapped by Will Smith, man. What happens to your life after you get slapped by Will Smith? What happens to your internal process? Talk about your brothers wanting to go out to him. What were the conversations you had then? Because that didn't happen. Did you want to hide? What does it go? Take us into the feelings of it, right? Be vulnerable with the feelings of it, not don't assault outwards. And there's actually, if you want to check out a really good special about it, God Loves Me by Marlon Wayans, actually is actually really, really good. And it's interestingly, and the whole special is based on this slap. And you would think like Marlon Wayans, the whole special based on this one slap, but he does an extremely, extremely entertaining and thorough job, because he knows all three people at highlighting them as people, their flaws, and then bringing them to the moment of the slap, and then also taking the different avenues on the responses that Chris could have done or whatever the case. It's extremely really funny, and it's very humanizing as well. So we've one of our most popular video ever on this show is the Gerard Carmichael special. And the reason that special is so popular to us and is one of the best specials that we've seen recently is the how deep he gets with the introspection. He gets so deep with the introspection. Even at one point of the show, literally hand on head saying, I don't know, dude. I just came out as gay. I don't know. This is weird. I don't know what that's like. And it slaps and it resonates and it sets it above all other comedy. If you're looking for comedy that's pushing the envelope in style and in whatever the case is, in whatever, however you want to grade comedy, you'd have to put that Gerard Carmichael special up there. And I think that's something that these guys can look into as well. Is just lean into vulnerability and see what that does for the show, because this is going to be unmemorable. This is like if Chris Rock slapped Will Smith slapped Chris Rock, and then they were like, "All right, here's Will, we got him for you, slap him," and Chris Rock did a flimsy slap, and it's like, I guess you got your leg back, sure, but now what?
Yeah. Missed opportunity, but glad to hear that Marlon special is dope. I'm definitely going to check that out. Thank you for, allowing us to bounce back
chats.
and forth. Yeah, man. Good chats. And in the spirit of vulnerable masculinity, I love my brother. You know what I'm saying? That's real.
Whoa, none of that funny
You
stuff.
see?
Producer, take
You
us.
see?
Producer, get us of this.
In live house production conversations, all incidents are recorded all the way live. We have one for you today. Dun dun.
What do you listen, dude? How do we have a conversation about this? We got to get serious about it. Recently, Walgreens have in 20 states, 20 Republican states have announced that they will no longer be selling a abortion pill. They have rescinded that. Over 20 states, which is over 500 Walgreens, have done it. They are not distributing pills that induce abortion. It is the drug in question is mifepristone. Back to toxic masculinity. What the hell?
Yo, man, thank you for setting the stage, for letting people know what's going on. Yes, Walgreens has in 21 states where Republicans have been up in arms. They've said that they will not be distributing or using their license to fill prescriptions for the abortion pill over at Walgreens. And that's important information to know. Zoe told y'all, remember that. I had somebody very close to me, somebody I should have listened to, break this story down to me. They said, hey, Walgreens is wilding. I said, oh, that's for the news. You know what I'm saying? Somebody texts you something, you're like, oh, wow, interesting. Like, kept going about my day. Went to get a haircut, what I'm saying? Got faded up nice. And if you've ever seen or been or talked to a brother right after he gets a haircut, he feeling himself, right?
Miles wasn't walking, he was floating.
I was floated out of the barbershop, floated down the street, floated past the store. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh, let me run in this store, get some stuff so I can emphasize the haircut. You know what I'm saying? I might even buy a new brush, make sure I got my oils, you know what I'm saying? All my creams, curls, looking right. So I walk into the store, everything's all good. I stroll into the store. I see the price of the thing I was going to get. I was like, oh, this is too expensive. I'm going to go to the store across the street. Thank goodness I didn't buy anything, because on my way out, I heard a commotion, right? And I was like, what could be going on, man? And I walked out of the store, which turned out to be Walgreens. And the protest that y'all are seeing right now, shout out to our producer Hassan. This is all the way live footage. I recorded this footage because I had forgot that someone had told me that it was protests going on for Walgreens, that Walgreens was doing some messed up stuff. I didn't pay attention to it in one ear and out the other. Found myself on the wrong side of this picket line, walking out of Walgreens while mad people was outside protesting, right? And I agreed with them, but there I was in Walgreens. So this is a PSA to y'all. When we talk about stuff, just keep it in mind, because you never know when you might find yourself out in the world and the protest has come to you, right? So
You would cross the picket fence for curl activator. This nigga.
yeah, yo, that's one of those things that's like, yeah, that sounds like me. That sound like if you told me I did that, I'd be like, when? I don't remember doing it, but but it sounds like I did, and I did. So it was just a reminder that, you know, these, first of all, many reasons to pay attention to stories like this, but also this reminder that this stuff is getting brought to our front doors, and in the ways in which our cell phones are our new front door and the internet is the new outside. It's being brought right to our faces, where very popular companies, who doesn't know Walgreens, at least in the States, right, are having to make decisions that have very deep consequences about what they stand on and what they don't. And so I won't make the mistake of shopping at Walgreens again until all of this is resolved or they change their stance on these pills. But yeah, man, it's wild times. It's wild times. How did you feel when you read this story? Will you join the boycott of Walgreens? Where are you at with it?
Yeah, man, I'm very disappointed in you for sure. You know, sad. If anything,
I'll take it. Yep.
It's sad that this is where you decide to cross the picket fence. But in all honesty, man, you know, I think the thing about this that's a teaching moment is last year we covered Roe v. Wade, and Roe v. Wade was the Supreme Court that ruled against the option and choice for women to have abortions in many states. Was a Supreme Court rule that was Roe v. Wade, right? And so, Roe v. Wade was overturned. Could you clarify me? I just want to make sure that I'm accurate.
Yeah, no, you spot on. You spot on. So it's long-standing precedent that protected women's rights to have an abortion, and it was overturned. At which point, several states in the United States had trigger laws, which meant as soon as it was overturned, abortion actually became illegal. So several other states, even though Roe v. Wade was overturned, have continued to keep up on the state law books the protection to women's rights to have an abortion. But in a lot of places, the overturning of Roe v. Wade meant that abortion became illegal. You got it.
So we hear things like Roe v. Wade getting overturned, and it seems like one of those judicial things that happen, and we really don't understand the context of how that impacts actual everyday life. Right now, you over here with the situation where this is literally when people are fighting against these Supreme Court rulings and people are protesting against them. They're protesting against them because of decisions like this. So what Walgreens ended up saying is, actually, guys, we are unable to sell this because we have gotten threats from the provincial governments in the state, from the state leaders in that country, that in those 21 states, that are saying, if you guys do sell this, you would be held in contempt. We will take legal action against you. So they're like, we literally can't do anything now because we're being threatened with legal action, and the state is allowed to do that because of decisions like Roe v. Wade being overturned. So a lot of the times there's a disconnect, right? We hear of a law getting passed or a law getting overturned, and the tangible context of how it impacts life is lost. Something that's very important to consider in this is that over half of abortions are administered through pills. And this particular pill that we're speaking about, mifepristone, is one of two different pills that is utilized in order to induce an abortion up to 10 weeks. The mifepristone, it loosens it loosens the womb, I believe, and then misoprostone is then what ushers and pushes the contents of what's in the womb out, thus inducing an abortion. So one of the things that people abortion anti-abortion critics will say, or anti-abortion supporters will say, is that these drugs are unsafe. These drugs are unregulated. These drugs need to be administered through a professional health doctor. If you look at the history of this drug, you'll actually see that in 2000 it was only administered through doctor appointments and through interview and etc. But after many years of lobbying for them to actually say that this drug is actually to actually see the effects that would have if the drug was administered over the counter, they realized that there aren't any additional adverse effects if the drug was to be administered out, and that people do have the ability to take it and induce it themselves. So here we are again, where we're telling women what to do with their bodies.
Man, this is one where I'm very comfortable in saying like my stance is very solidified, right? There are other issues where I'm eager to hear opponents of my personal position make the best arguments possible. This is one where I'm kind of like, yo, fam, women have been telling you what they want. In fact, the majority of people, right? Gallup, which is a pretty reputable source of information. They do surveys across the country to kind of gauge how people's sentiments on a variety of different topics. And the percentage of those who think abortion should be legal under all or most circumstances is over 50% in the US, right? So you have this combination of, as you laid out, right, misinformation and misguided kind of themes and ideas that are kind of perpetuated, fear tactics, right, to make people feel like there's an element of safety in restricting the control of who can administer these abortion pills, as well as there's a disconnect between what the majority of people in a country want and how that's being played out in the legal system. So with all of that in mind, it's just, for me, this is a situation where women should have the right to choose, period. And the fact that a whole bunch of old white men that have been handed their positions have been handed down from old white man to old white man for a long time are continuing to obstruct that right, I think is jacked up. And I think it speaks to a larger issue. Oh, go ahead.
Nah, please.
I was just going to say, it speaks to a larger issue for all of us, where we're all going to have to take a look at some of these. Like, I got a Walgreens across the street. I've been in that Walgreens hundreds of times, right? And now I'm faced with the decision of, am I going to walk, and this is a big decision in the hood, an extra few blocks to not go to Walgreens, right? To go to a different store because of what I stand on and what I believe in. And I think we're increasingly going to be faced with that. I think we're being left, at least in the United States, with whether you're a person or a corporation, there's going to be little room to not stand on your beliefs. And in some ways, that's going to be very tense and very uncomfortable. But in some ways, I think that's the only thing that's going to be able to force us toward progress.
It is so frustrating, dude. It is so frustrating because it's completely imbalanced where the attention of care is. We're here trying to regulate abortion pills, and we are very quick to be able to pull those off of the shelves for women, but we won't even address the fact that Adderall and amphetamines are overprescribed in the US, causing our siblings and our family members to go into mental breaks, causing them to be addicted, and then also realizing that the overprescription also leads to additional health effects that keep going. ADHD is rampant right now, not only because people actually have those symptoms, but because the prescription element is the first solution that is given to people before actual other solutions of being able to wean people into a more mentally stable place is practiced. Dude, it makes us really question, like, what do we care about? Do we care about people? What's the point of limiting abortions if those babies are just going to be brought into a world where they just fed other drugs to be killed or to go kill themselves? Then what's the point? Like, at what juncture are we going to place that care, right? The overprescription of amphetamines in the US is ridiculous. They were saying there's enough pills in Florida alone to give every citizen in the US 13 full pill bottles of amphetamines.
Florida's a wild place, my G. Florida's a wild
It's not
place.
Florida.
No, but I feel you, man. The issue is bigger than Florida. It's a health crisis that we're much less eager to address than this issue of abortion, which, despite less dire consequences on the medical front, as you laid out, right, is being pushed as the larger threat to safety, not disregarding the safety of the women who are trying to exercise their right to choose. So I feel you. It's much bigger than Florida.
It's bigger than Nino Brown. Nino Brown being the pharmaceutical companies in this particular instance. And if you think that the pharmaceutical companies don't have the ability to say no to something like this, then you have no concept on how big of a lobbying group the pharmaceutical companies are. It's pharmaceutical companies and it's real estate companies that are the biggest lobbyist groups in the US right now. If you don't believe me, go watch your last Super Bowl. Go see how many ads were sponsored by pharmaceutical companies. If you don't believe me, go ahead and watch CNN. Go ahead and watch just go watch any TV in the US and see how many ads are coming out on prescription pills that we know are leading people to mental health issues. We know are guarding people there, but we're not doing anything to be able to stop that. Instead, we're focusing on limiting women. Man, it's bullshit. And it makes me mad. It's bullshit and it makes me mad. I think we're moving into a culture where we have no real context on the things that are killing us and are quick to run and fight over things that in truth are don't matter, and limit other people's choices. Why are we quick to fight over things that limits other people's choices and aren't focused on doing things that help extend life? When are we going to choose life?
Man, speaking of Florida and continuing to restrict people's choices, this is something that we're going to continue to see, right? The government putting pressure on corporations that, frankly, are aligned with giving people more choice, right? Florida specifically, Disney World, Disney came out, right, and denounced legislation that was aimed at, in Florida, they were trying to, the Don't Say Gay bill. The big wigs at Disney came out and said, nah, we're not with that, right? Then you see Governor Ron DeSantis turn around and start attacking Disney World's. We even covered it on the show, man. Remember, the Disney World has its own kind of operation system and government there in Florida. They were cool to let that run for all the years that Disney World has existed. Then Disney World comes out against the Don't Say Gay bill, and they're like, you know what? We need to take away all that Disney World land, right? It's really interesting just to be faced with the fact that, like, we've talked a lot on this show about how to vote with your wallet, right? How a lot of us are being put in positions where companies are expressing and showing and doing things that are detrimental to communities that we value. And now it's on us to say, are you still going to continue to spend your dollars with that company? And I think that's only going to be an increasing issue, an increasing problem, and something that I'm interested maybe to continue having discussions on this show about, just in more general topics. Like, at what point are we only buying and purchasing brands that we truly align with morally, right? Like, I'm gonna just eat nothing but Ben and Jerry's ice cream because Ben and Jerry's seems to be on the right side of things.
Don't just eat ice cream.
But you feel me? Like, we're moving to a place where more and more the decisions of what I purchase are actually going to be dictated in a new way, in addition to quality and price, but by whatever the corporation stands for.
Yep, and you might need a lot of good data to help figure that type of stuff out. Coming soon to you too. Hey man, listen, it's I'm glad we're able to cover this. You know where me and Miles stand about this type of stuff. Educate yourselves, people. Stand for something. Stand for something. Stand for something. Don't just be a passenger. Don't just be a passenger of decisions that don't align with your morals. Stand for something. Let your pockets vote for you. There's nothing more powerful than that. And let's see if we can change this world, man.
We're gonna change it one way. That's for sure. There's always one thing that changes the world that's very close to our hearts. Part of the show. Back in review. Yo, always good to be reviewing an artist that has evolved and changed and grown with us. I might have been with you the first time I heard Masego. You feel me?
Yeah. Pink sweater.
Pink Polo back on the
Pink
SoundCloud days.
polo. Pink polo. Pink polo. We're doing damage to pink polo. Pink polo days. That's Miles' Way's heyday right there, boy. You
Bro.
don't even know what was happening in pink polo. There's hey.
Hey.
You know what I'm talking about, polo days, son.
In addition to hey, how else would you describe Masego's music, man? Not an easy task sometimes.
Listen, man. I think when Masego first came into the scene, when we first heard Masego off of the Pink Polo, off of the SoundCloud days, coming through SoundCloud, he wasn't a vocal artist. It was all the saxophone remixes that he was doing, and it was super smooth. It was like this, the time of that sound was extremely it was very fitting for that time. You had a lot of Estas who were doing these remixes and these flips, and you had a lot of Mr. Carmack that were doing a lot of flips. You also had Xavier Omar, who was also adding a lot of different sounds on top. So it was a very cool time. You know, this is what we would call like the this is when SoundCloud was really taking off, and Masego was a big part of that. You cannot appreciate the genesis of Masego without appreciating his contribution towards SoundCloud from a saxophone aspect of it. So to me, this was, you know, when me and Miles was out here running the streets, you know what I'm saying? Masego's music would be what I would say the classiest of the SoundCloud music that we had. You know, it was the refined type of flips that we would listen to him for. And then after time, you see the boy change, man. So that's what I would describe him as, Miles, as the classy SoundCloud guy at the beginning.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Shout out to Selection too. A huge channel community that helped to push music like this. Music that was very focused on, if not live instrumentation, really playing around with and expanding some of the characteristics of hip hop and of jazz and of funk and of soul, and really pushing the limits of those genres. I think Masego is a jazzy, bordering on electronic, just a vibe. And so his self-titled album is, I think, one of his better bodies of work. I've always been able to find one or two tracks from every Masego project that I like, that make the playlist, that are guaranteed to make somebody say, who is this? But this one was one of the easiest listens through and through. And it seemed like he's really coming into his own in terms of being able to bounce back and forth seamlessly from kind of flipping other people's work. The cha-cha slide flip that he opens that this album with was a lot of fun for me. He also flips another song, I think in the second or third track, that's very popular. And he does it well. He puts his own taste, his own spin on it, and then dives into some music that's purely based on some more original ideas and based on his musical talent and instrumentation. And it all just works, right? From the tracks that I like to the tracks that I love. This is a great body of work. And I'm excited to rinse it all spring and summer.
Yeah, man. I think with Masego, I think you put it really well. This is his best work, and you can tell because he's very intelligent in the way that he puts music on here. He uses some he uses some things that are slightly, I want to say, cheap tricks in the way that he puts the album together. Like you're saying, the flip that he uses, that I'm in London with Khadija. Like
Yep.
I was playing that music out loud, that everyone can recognize that pattern and that song. So already you got people hooked from a very recognizable pattern, which is a cheap trick, but the music that is embedded in it still sounds really, really good. I think it's his last offering, Studying Abroad, was really good. Studying Abroad was a very good album, but I do think on Studying Abroad there were parts in Studying Abroad that might have lost some of the some people along the way, right? There's some Mystery Lady was a very popular song that came out of Study Abroad. Passport was as well. But I think from this particular album, Masego was really able to balance contemporary new age sound, but still keep in grounded that trap house jazz Masego elements that made him super popular. And you've seen him really blow up over videos like the Tadao video that he did with FKJ that was become super, super popular, millions of views. And then also seeing how that was then sampled by Drake at a different point. So we've seen Masego ascend in his popularity. Um, it's cool to see, man. His collaborators have always been very, very strong, man. You're talking Masego is within the the let's call it the avant-garde of new age music, right? The people who the people who your favorite artists look up to. And Masego definitely is always standing shoulder to shoulder with those people. Your Kojoy Radicals, your K Trinadas, your Van Jesses, your Sirs, your Gold Links, your Tiffany Goosh, people that have a very high acumen of artistry. And he always fits very, very well into there. So we see the same thing carried out through this album. I do think this is his best work. I personally enjoyed it a lot. I um I tried it in a few different settings, and I kept on finding myself running the whole way through with very, very few misses, man. So a highly, highly enjoyable piece of art.
Absolutely. And another thing about Masego is that his voice lends itself to being very playful. I think it's the reason that he gets away with some of the flips and some of the lines that he delivers. But I think on previous projects, he's either relied too much on the uniqueness of his voice or even let that playfulness kind of dip into something a little bit more like caricature-ish, which I think is some of the places that he might have lost people on previous projects. But he's very measured all throughout this album, and it made it a dope listen for me. Um, Bro, just having seen the Roots like in concert was also a reminder of how important and what a difference using real instruments in music can make. And I think this album in particular would make for a fantastic live show. You feel me?
Hmm.
I can only imagine him going crazy on the saxophone, on the guitar, letting some drummers go crazy with some of these beats. Uh, this is gonna perform really, really well. Get your tickets early. That's a slam dunk of a date, for you and your lady. The
Definitely.
concert where he's performing this, do yourself a favor for that one. Um, so yeah, man, I'll let y'all go and listen to it. Not too much else to say. Some highlights from me were Saks Fifth Avenue, Remembering Sundays, You Never Visit Me, Black Anime. What you got?
Oh, dude, definitely Black Anime. You Never Visit Me. Two Sides. Sax Fifth. What You Want to Try. Eternal Sunshine. It's good, dude, and it's got a storyline that's interlinked within it. He's very intentional, like you said. He's got big stage in mind. He's got even You Never Visit Me is it rolls off of a skit of him in a cafe with an ex, and then he goes and he performs in a small Ethiopian restaurant, right? And it's got that feel. So um what's so great is be able to see these people that we've been listening to for a decade. We've literally been listening to Trap House Jazz for since 2013, and we pride ourselves on being people who introduce this sort of music to a lot of people because we're that close with it. And we always said, like, nah, dude, like, this type of music is the future. This type of music is the future. And to be able to see how it's matured over time, even with K Tronada, even with Goldlink, all these other guys we've spoken about, the best of the best at that time are all taking significant steps forward and are all in a place now where they are at the top. Isaiah Rashad being one of those people too. So if you're looking at where music is going right now, and if you're looking at the people who are carrying the mantle of authentic music, I think you have to, after this album, include Masego in part of that conversation, because he is authentic to himself, he's authentic to his style, he's experimentative, but also extremely technical, and utilizing all the different things that it takes in order to become an artist that stands the test of time, man. So from us, we appreciate this album, appreciate the Masegos, man, and keep giving us that. Like Miles said, we'll definitely be taking our ladies to a date like this. Maybe we can even do a joint date of sorts. You know what I'm saying, Miles Xavier? Who knows what's in our future? But I can see us. This is one of those albums you don't need to know to enjoy if it's being played live.
Yeah, summer 23 is gonna be crazy. So let us know, man. Check this out. Zway's giving you a bunch of, if you like this, go listen to's, the Katra, the Gold Link, the few names that you named are for sure people that people should jump to from this album. Let us know what you think of it. Let us know what live shows y'all are excited for this summer. Let us know what some of your favorite tracks are. I'm giving Masego a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5 it is, man. 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5. And we do that because we know.
Yeah, we know y'all could be anywhere in the world. Y'all all are all over the world. And you could be doing anything with your Sunday, but you're tuned into us. We appreciate that so much. We appreciate everybody who rocks with us through the technical difficulties, through the conversations that we don't know, that we don't have answers to. And we appreciate all the engagement, all the support, all the love as we look at the world and try and figure out what's going on in real time. We appreciate y'all involvement and engagement 100%. So please like, comment, subscribe. That helps us a lot. And man, if I may say so myself, the content deserves it. We get into a great place with this stuff. So we appreciate everybody that's on the journey, that joins us for this celebration of celebrating, the celebration of life, the celebration of how good it feels to support women. Happy Women's Month. Don't it feel good, Way?
Love you, baby. Hello, mama. It feels great.
This man making me look bad. Yeah. Love to Zway's mom. Love to my girl. Love to my mom. Y'all out there. Y'all make sure y'all eat something delicious. Hug somebody you love. Like that. Peace. Water.
Yeah, I get that.